we're recording. Would you mind introducing yourself, Mike?
I am Mike Hood, Senior, North Texas vet, U.S. Air Force, from December 74 to being relieved from active duty, March 1994.
Okay. When were you over in Saudi and Iraq, Mike?
I was based in Saudi Arabia, February to June 1988, and February to May 1993.
Okay. What was your position over there?
Combat operations. I was the NCOIC of ELF-1 in '88 and the control tech of Joint Task Force Saudi Southwest Asia, J3, and primary mission was monitoring the airflow.
So you were at command post level?
At headquarters level.
Headquarters level, and you were the NCOIC?
Basically the NCOIC of combat operations.
Okay. Was that, has that been judge combat related there?
According to the people at Randolph Air Force Base, when I went to file my appeal for combat related special compensation, they deemed, all of a sudden somebody deemed that the headquarters in Riyadh was not a combat operations center, and what we were exposed to was not combat related or weapons of war.
And what occurred while you were there directly, attacks or?
Well, we didn't learn about the attacks until one of our senior airmen had returned and gave us a little rundown on what happened in Desert Storm. So by that time in '88, when the first battle was going on during the Iran-Iraq War, most of the battle was north of us between Iran and Iraq. But one day they started really shelling each other, and a northern wind came down, and this is about the same time the Kurds were hitting Halabja, and that binary weapon or whatever they want to call it was airborne and drifted down, and that's when I first contracted Gulf War illness in '88.
Yeah, I wanted you to talk about that time because it's not really widely known that we had forces over there in '88 before the 91 time period. Could you explain that?
Well, we were running operations out of Shaw, Bergstrom, and different parts of the Air Force to support the Iraqis at the time fighting Iran. And during that time, mainly my time in '88, that's when they really started shelling each other. We didn't know the true flow of the battle until later, till things died down. We started doing a little more research.
Okay, so you actually got sick over there in theater
in '88.
In '88.
Mm-hmm.
Can you retract to one incident that?
My incident was on the way to the BX. We were staying at the hotel on Military Boulevard, and so we would catch the bus on a BX run. But one day out of the blue, my nose just started running, and I kind of thought about Rommel's troubles back in World War II, and I noticed. Then I started having a sore throat, then memory loss, and just one little ailment after another. And by the time March, April, and May rolled around, I started having more problems, and then I was called at Wilford Hall for nasal surgery, major surgery. They removed tonsils, adenoids, and part of my soft palate.
And when was that?
May 1990. Then I went to Korea, and by the time I got settled in Korea, I started noticing the little sharp pains, the imbalance. All of a sudden, the rage, everything they talked about Gulf War illness after Desert Storm already had.
Okay. The VA recently, after their Gulf War Veteran Advisory Committee, formed a internal task force with our new Chief of Staff, John Gimrich, who also served over in the Gulf War Artillery with the Army. And I'm sure you've read that task force and online and able to put in comments. What is your response to that Gulf War Veteran Advisory Committee and the task force internal? What's your response to that effort?
After I sit and read and try to digest the whole report, I actually made a comment to one trusted person who's not a veteran that the paper was not up to my standards.
In what way?
It seemed like it just left the whole essence of the war out. You just hit on a point, you just look at a small point, and that's what they tried to drive home to veterans, and they forgot there was a war before and up to Desert Storm. Then there was the veterans who served after the end of Desert Storm, the mobilized part into Iraq, all the way into Desert Fox. After they unleashed that stew of toxins, they forgot people served over there.
Okay. Are you seeing, you're here in North Texas, Wichita, very active with the VFW, you've gotten trained as a service officer, and you're rated ill, and you've been reaching out and trying to help others, both online and what you do here in the local area and for the Texas Veterans Commission. Are you seeing changes? Are you seeing anything change from the VA level and VA hospital or the clinics? Anything? Any change that you see, and what do you see?
From my own appointments, I have friends who has Gulf War illness. A couple of them have renal failure. Some have heart problems, combination, lung problems. One of our desert vets, who's Navy, she has lung problems. She has problems that nobody don't. If I was a doctor, I'd spend $1 million trying to research bit by bit what's making her really ill. I just wouldn't just said, oh, here's the symptoms, we'll treat the symptoms, because when they try to treat the symptoms, something else pops up. I got another Gulf War vet friend who doesn't even come to VFW meetings anymore. He's just trying to maintain. And on the VA level, I wouldn't wish that on a dog.
What are you seeing? I mean, how are you?
The appointments, you have to wait 6 months to a year to just get an appointment in the arthritis clinic. My appointments were chopped down from 6 months to a year. So the Air Force actually has to fill in the gaps. So my primary care clinic is a civilian system with TRICARE as the backup.
Okay. But I know you mentioned to me before when we were talking that you've been up to Oklahoma City.
That's my primary healthcare system.
What did you see up there? Do you see any change in attitude? We've all talked about this, extremely bad attitude at the VA of, well, hell, that wasn't a war.
Well, some people still have a strange idea, or they think they know what Gulf War illness is, and it's just not one thing. You put up a banner that says Gulf War illness, but you have to put up PTSD, motor neuron disorders, traumatic brain injury, and then look at the combinations to see where the person is. Everybody's not made from the same shell. Gulf War illness affects each person differently.
Okay, are you seeing concentration still going on, that it's stress, psychological, that there isn't physiological problems?
It's the physical, but everything else, the stressors, in war, out of war, is, drives, if a person is able to maintain a healthy, semi-healthy lifestyle, diet, exercise, less stress, less congestion at home or work, the veteran's able to maintain. But soon as something's out of kilt on one side, Gulf War illness will function.
But what I'm asking is the VA and the doctors, nurse practitioners that you see, do they have a good knowledge on exposures on Gulf War illness?
No.
Do they have a concern about the exposures?
Nobody talks about the exposures.
What do they talk about?
If you go to one of my appointments, they squeeze your finger. They ask you, you've been to the lab, right? They read the lab reports. But nobody talks about Q fever. Nobody talks about Epstein-Barr. Nobody talks about mycoplasma. Nobody talks about the stuff that's actually killing you.
And you've been tested for a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
You've done a lot of reaching outside using
Mm-hmm.
TRICARE and Air Force and civilian doctors to get testing. And how did they respond to that?
The VA didn't want to see the reports. Air Force assumes that they have all the answers, and I'm going to want to walk around with the answers because it's me. By the grace of God, I was blessed to get tested.
Yeah. Have you had any problems with your records maintenance?
Records maintenance, missing medical files, records from the Air Force point of view missing, sent off to a repository off in D.C. Only a handful of doctors can access my true medical records.
Was it all of your medical records or?
Bits and pieces, surgical records, cancer records, cancer testing, skin testing, bladder biopsies, pulmonary functions, lung exams, you name it, spinal taps.
So there are several volumes, I understand, of your records.
And
Did all of them vanish?
One particular volume disappeared out of my local records.
Why did that happen?
Anybody, there had to be something in that one particular volume nobody wanted around.
You're a VSO with the VFW, and you really reach out and try to help your fellow veteran. And what do you see as continual problems with the Gulf War veteran claims?
Some veterans know they've been to war, but a lot of them didn't document the when, where, and the whys. And that's the hardest part to get somebody to understand. You document the day I was called up, the day I got on the plane, the day I got in country, the day I hit my ingress point. You have to go through all the steps like your own personal novel. You have to have a concise picture of what happened when you took off, what happened in theater, what happened when you got ready to leave theater, and what happens while you're going through the transition.